I'm a Muslim, I came from the streets to Islam, the ghetto. Now when you see your brother, give a palm, embrace with a hug and greet me with salam. Salamu alaikum.
غرباء 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 غرباء.
So now today we're going to start with the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But actually, before we talk about him, you guys need to understand the environment he was born into. So we're going to talk a little bit about how things were before he was born. The messenger of Allah was Muhammad, son of Abdullah, son of Abdul Mutalib, son of Hashim, son of Abdul Manaf, son of Qusay. His mother, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's mother, was Amina, the daughter of Wahab, son of Abdul Manaf, son of Zuhra. The ancestry of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ stretches all the way back to Adnan, and the ancestry of Adnan stretches back to Ismail, the son of Ibrahim ﷺ. The mother of Ismail ﷺ was Hajar of Egypt. Every Arab is descended from Ismail ﷺ. So Ismail ﷺ is the father of all Arabs. And from the children of Adnan came the tribes, the many families of Ismail ﷺ. Adnan had two sons, Ma'ad and Ak. Ak went off to live in Yemen. Now, the king of Yemen was a man called Dhu Nuwas. When Christianity came to Najran at the hand of a man called Abdullah ibn al-Thamir, many people put their faith in it. Dhu Nuwas, the king, was a Jew, however. Dhu Nuwas was a Jew. He summoned Abdullah ibn al-Thamir and gave him and all the Christians a choice between converting to Judaism or being killed. They preferred to die rather than to switch their religion. So Dhu Nuwas, he dug a giant hole and he burned them all in it. He put them all in and set them on fire. But one man escaped. He was called Daus, and he made his way north to Caesar, the ruler of Byzantium. He begged him to help him fight Dhu Nuwas and his supporters. Caesar said, "Know that your land lies very far from us, but I shall send a letter to the king of Abyssinia, for he is of our Christian religion. He is closer to your country." So, let's clarify. The king of Yemen, Dhu Nuwas, was a Jew, and he didn't like the Christians coming in and having their religion. So he ordered them to either change to be Jews like him, or he was going to kill them. And when they refused, he threw them in a giant hole and he burned them all. But one man escaped, and he went all the way to Caesar, who was in another country, Byzantium. Caesar told him, "You guys are very far away from us. I can't help you. But I will send a letter to another king, the king of Abyssinia, because he's a Christian like you and me, and he is closer, so he will help you." So Caesar wrote the letter to the Abyssinian king and asked him to help Daus and to take revenge. So Daus set off and gave Caesar's letter to Negus, the king of Abyssinia. Negus gave him 70,000 Abyssinian soldiers headed by a man called Ariyat. Among his men was Abraha, the hare-lipped. Ariyat and Daus set sail until they came to the land of Yemen. Dhu Nuwas marched with the tribes of that land to meet him. When the two armies came together, they clashed, and Dhu Nuwas and his people were defeated. Ariyat settled down in Yemen and ruled there for some time. But after a while, Abraha fought with him over the kingship in Yemen. So Abraha got jealous and said, "I want to be in charge." So he fought with Ariyat. Then the Abyssinians took sides. Some followed Ariyat, some followed Abraha. Then they marched one group against the other. Ariyat picked up a spear and dealt Abraha a heavy blow. The spear hit Abraha's forehead, and then it split open his nose and his lip, which is how he came to be called the hare-lip, because his mouth looked like a rabbit's face. But then one of Abraha's slaves attacked Ariyat and killed him. When the soldiers saw this, they joined Abraha's side. They said, "Okay, you guys won. We're going to be on your side now." And in this way, everyone in Yemen swore loyalty to him, so he became the king of Yemen. But the king of Abyssinia was angry at him. He blamed him for all the fighting and bloodshed, and he threatened him. He said that he will tread on the soil of Yemen and cut off his hair. He was angry. So Abraha sent a messenger with gifts and precious objects to the king to make him happy and flatter him. And he also sent a sack containing soil from Yemen and a piece of hair cut from his head. And he said, "You can walk upon the soil of Yemen and fulfill your promise, and here is my hair already cut off for you." When the king of Abyssinia received these gifts and the letter, he told Abraha, "Okay, you have my approval. You can be king of Yemen now." Then Abraha promised him that he would build a church for him in Yemen like no one had ever built before. So he began to build a huge church in Sana'a, a place in Yemen. It was tall and beautifully crafted and decorated on all sides. The Arabs called it Al-Qulais because of its great height. It was so tall that if one looked at it, they would have to look up, and their hats, their kufis, like you see us wearing, their kufis would fall off the back of their heads because they would have to look way up to see it. Then Abraha decided to force the Arabs to make their pilgrimage here instead of going to the Kaaba. He announced this in his kingdom and told all the Arabs they have to do it. But the Arabs in Mecca, the tribes of Adnan and Qahtan, were angry. They didn't want to do it. They said, "We want to keep going where we've been going." The Quraysh were infuriated, actually. So much, they were so mad that one of them snuck to the church at night. And then he relieved himself. He used the bathroom on the floor in the corner in there. He was that mad that he said, "I'm going to desecrate this place. I'm going to make it a mess and make it disgusting because he made us mad. So I'm going to go." And so he went into the corner of the church and he soiled the place. He went to the corner of the church and used the bathroom on the ground like an animal. And then he left. He escaped. No one caught him.
Assalamu alaikum. بكتاب الله نتلوه صباحا ومساء كم تذاكرنا زمانا يوم كنا سعداء بكتاب الله نتلوه صباحا ومساء
When the people of the church came the next day and saw it, they went and told Abraha. They told him, "One of the Arabs did this because you told them to come here instead of the Kaaba." When he heard this, he swore to march to the Kaaba and to destroy it stone by stone. Muqatil ibn Sulaiman mentioned that a group of young men from the Quraysh then entered the church and started a fire in it on an extremely windy day. So when it's windy, the fire gets blown around, so it really burns really fast. And that's exactly what happened. The church caught fire and collapsed to the ground. Due to this, Abraha really got mad at them, so he prepared himself and set out with a huge and powerful army so that no one could stop him. And he took with him 13 huge elephants. and the largest of them was a really gigantic one named Mahmud. It was sent to him by the King of Abyssinia just for the purpose of going to the Kaaba and destroying it. They planned to take the elephants and tie chains to their necks and around the Kaaba and have them pull it all apart one at a time. When the Arabs heard of this, they were very worried. They held it to be an obligation to defend the Kaaba and fight against whoever was going to destroy it. Thus, the noblest man of the people of Yemen and the greatest of their chiefs set out to face him. His name was Dhu Nafr. He called his people, and whoever would respond to his call among the Arabs to go to war against Abraha and fight in defense of the Kaaba. He called the people to stop Abraha's plan to demolish the Kaaba. So the people responded to him, and they entered into battle with Abraha, but he defeated them. So Abraha beat the army that was going to protect the Kaaba, and he kept on going, marching towards the Kaaba. The army continued on its way until it reached the land of Khatham, where it was confronted by Nufail ibn Habib Khathami, along with his people, the Shahran and Nahis tribes. They fought Abraha, but he defeated them and captured Nufail. In the beginning, he was going to kill Nufail, but he forgave him and told him, if you guide me to the Kaaba, then I will spare you. I'm not going to kill you. So when they approached close by, the people of Ta'if went out to Abraha. They wanted to please him in hopes that he would leave them alone. Abraha was kind to them, and they sent a man named Abu Rigal with him as a guide. When they reached a place known as Al-Mughammas, which is near Mecca, they settled there. Then he sent his troops on a foray to capture the camels and other grazing animals of the Meccans. So when he came to Mecca, he told his troops to go and take all of the people's camels and horses and cows and all of their animals away from them. All of their grazing animals away from them. They took 200 camels belonging to Abdul Mutalib. Remember, that's the grandfather of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The leader of this particular expedition, the leader of this group that took the camels, was named Al-Aswad ibn Mas'ud. Then Abraha sent a messenger to Mecca, commanding him to bring out the leader of the Quraysh. He told him to tell the leader that the king will not fight the people unless they try to fight him first. All he wanted to do was destroy the Kaaba. When Abdul Mutalib heard this, he said, by Allah, we have no wish to fight him, nor are we in any position to do so. We don't want to fight him, and we can't fight him. This is the house of Allah, and the house of his Khalil, Ibrahim a.s. So remember, as I told you guys before, Ibrahim was called Khalil ar-Rahman, the close friend of the Most Merciful, the close friend of Allah. And he was the one that built the Kaaba. So Abdul Mutalib told him, this is the house of Allah and Ibrahim a.s. And if he wishes to prevent them, if Allah wants to stop them from destroying it, then it is his house, and so it's his job to do so. And if he lets them approach it, by Allah, we have no means to defend it from him. So he said, this is the house of Allah, and if he wants to defend it, he can do so. But if he chooses not to, we are not able to do so. When Abraha saw him, he was impressed by him, because Abdul Mutalib was a large and handsome man. So when Abraha descended from his seat, he sat with him on a carpet on the ground. Then he asked him, his translator, to say to him, what do you need? Abdul Mutalib replied to him, I want the king to return my camels, which he has taken from me. There are 200 of them. Give them back. So Abraha told his translator to tell him, I was impressed by you when I first saw you, but now I withdraw after you have spoken to me. You are asking me about 200 camels which I have taken from you, and you leave the matter of the house, which is the foundation of the religion of yours and the religion of your fathers. So he told him, at first I was impressed by you, but now you're coming in, rather than asking about your Kaaba, to defend the Kaaba, you're asking me about your own 200 camels? You're selfish. So don't speak to me about it. Abdul Mutalib said to him, verily, I am just the lord of the camels. As for the house, it has its lord who will defend him. Abraha said to him, I cannot be prevented from destroying it. So Abraha said very proudly, he said, no one can stop me from destroying it. Abdul Mutalib said, then do so. If you think you are able to do it, then go ahead and do it. Abdul Mutalib then returned to his people and ordered them to leave Mecca to seek shelter at the top of the mountains. He said, Abraha is going to come destroy the Kaaba, so let's go somewhere else and be safe. So they all went to the mountains. Then he took hold of the metal ring of the door of the Kaaba, and along with some of the people of Quraysh, he called out to Allah to give them victory over Abraha and his army. Abdul Mutalib said, there is no matter more important to any man right now than the defense of his livestock and property. So, O my Lord, defend your property. Their cross and their cunning will not be victorious over your cunning by the time the morning comes. The people of Mecca, they're not concerned about the Kaaba. All they care about is their camels and their property. Abraha is coming to destroy the Kaaba, and you are able to defend it, so do so. You are better, you are higher and smarter than them, so defend the Kaaba. They all went to the mountains to go hide away from Abraha. When the morning came, Abraha prepared to enter the city of Mecca. He got on the huge elephant. Remember, the biggest of the elephants was named Mahmud, and he climbed on top of him and he told them, let's go. They were preparing to go and destroy the Kaaba. At that moment, Nufail ibn Habib, remember the one he captured before, the Arab before that didn't want him to destroy the Kaaba, he stood next to Mahmud, the elephant, and he whispered in its ear, kneel, then turned around and returned directly to whence you came, for verily you are in the sacred city of Allah. So he let go of the elephant's ear, and the elephant, realizing where it was, knelt. So the elephant sat down. It didn't want to go and destroy the Kaaba. It sat down. And Abraha and all of his people started beating the elephant, trying to make it stand up and walk, but it refused. They beat it on its head with axes and used hooked staffs to put it out of its resistance and make it stand, but it refused. It was determined to stay sitting there. It didn't want to go destroy the Kaaba. So then they turned him towards Yemen, and he got up quickly and walked. He was fine with going back to Yemen. Then they turned him towards Syria, and he did the same. He was fine to keep walking. They turned him towards the east, and he did the same thing. Then they turned him towards Mecca to go destroy the Kaaba, and he sat down again. Then Allah sent against them, against the entire army, birds from the sea, like swallows and herons. So like the small little swallow, the birds called swallows, Allah sent them a large cloud of birds flying. Each bird carried 3 stones the size of chickpeas and lentils. So tiny, tiny little rocks. They carried 1 in each claw and 1 in its beak. So each one carried 3 stones. And they flew over the army of Abraha, and they dropped their stones. Everyone who was hit by them was destroyed. When the stones came and hit the people, their skin burst open. Their flesh was bursting open. Their skin was peeling away and bursting open as soon as they were hit. So Abraha was hit, and his skin began to burst open, and his army was carrying him away as he was falling apart piece by piece until they arrived back in Yemen, where the church was. When they arrived back in Yemen, he was skinny and all his flesh had been burnt away and exploded off until he looked like a baby bird. And then it is said that he died when his heart fell out of his chest. So that is the story of how Allah defended the Kaaba against Abraha, the evil man who came to destroy it. This happened during the same year, actually, that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was born. And next week in class, we're going to start by talking about when the Prophet ﷺ was born. Inshallah, that's all we have for today in the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Be sure to write down all the important notes and bring them to class, and we will continue with the life of the Prophet next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
غرباء 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 غرباء